Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Thank you for your attendance tonight. This is a formal public hearing on a proposed permit under the Federal Underground Injection Control Program, or the UIC program, for a project consisting of one brine disposal well known as the Seneca Resources Corporation well number 38282 in Highland Township, Elk County. Public notices for these permits were distributed to state and local government officials, interested parties who have written or called EPA, and also published in the Keene Republican on June 15, 2017. I ask for your cooperation in adhering to the procedures I will outline for you shortly, so that we may make the most of this opportunity for public comment. First, however, I'll introduce myself and other members of the agency in attendance. I'm James Bennett, the Chief of the Groundwater Enforcement Branch. With me is Roger Reinhardt, our project manager, and David Rechtenwald, our field and gas inspector. For those who came here today out of general environmental interest and concern, I'd like to acquaint you with the basic goals of the UIC program, which EPA is administrating in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Federal Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 and its amendments recognize the importance of safeguarding our nation's drinking water supplies in a number of ways. One program authorized by the Act is the Public Water System Supervision Program, which is designed to ensure that public water supplies deliver safe drinking water to their users. This program is currently being operated by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Congress also recognized at the time of the law's enactment that our groundwater resources, which supply approximately half of our nation's drinking water resources, also needed protection from potentially harmful practices such as underground injection of fluids. Sections 1421 through 1424 of the Safe Drinking Water Act addresses those provisions, which authorizes the UIC program and covers the procedures under which EPA must implement a federally administered program in those states such as Pennsylvania, whenever a state will not or cannot assume primary enforcement for the program. Since June 25, 1984, EPA has been enforcing the federal UIC program in Pennsylvania. The program addresses a variety of different types or classes of injection wells, including nearly 1,500 active oil and gas related wells in Pennsylvania. The objective of the program and permits authorized under it are to ensure that the construction and operation of these wells provides the highest level of protection to underground sources of drinking water. Underground sources of drinking water, or USDWs, are basically defined as those aquifers which supply or could supply drinking water for human consumption. The regulatory definition of a USDW also includes consideration of both the quantity of water and its quality. It protects all groundwater with less than 10,000 parts per million total dissolved solids, in order to allow for future uses of the resources. Any and all new injection wells constructed after June of 1984 are required to apply for an EPA permit to ensure compliance with the construction and operational requirements to safeguard our groundwater resources. It is our intent to enforce the provisions of the UIC program for Pennsylvania to enhance and protect the Commonwealth's groundwater resources by assuring that the injection operations meet protective standards mandated by the UIC program. I would like to clarify the need for a federal program on this issue and the relationship to state and local authorities. Existing programs within the state had not historically addressed injection operations in the preventative sense as does the federal UIC program. EPA's program is designed to protect groundwater resources through stringent casing, cementing, testing, and continuous monitoring requirements. It is a program which seeks to address many of the concerns you have for the prevention of water supply contamination, as well as protection of other natural resources. The UIC program, however, does not address or have jurisdiction to enforce against issues such as noise, air emissions, truck traffic, or siting related to residential buildings that you may have also concerns about. The UIC permit does not contain the UIC permit does contain condition that requires an operator to meet all required local and state laws. A UIC permit does not override any local or state regulations. The purpose of the UIC permitting process for existing and new wells is to control and prevent any injected fluids from endangering underground sources of drinking water. All injection operations must comply with the construction, operation, monitoring, and reporting requirements specified in the UIC regulations. The specific technical requirements for construction of the well, maximum injection pressure limitations, and a corrective action plan in the area of review, which is required to address any unplugged wells which penetrate the injection formation, and which may serve as conduits for fluid migration. All are designed to ensure that the injected fluids are contained within the well and intended injection zone. The EPA has several mechanisms for identifying non-compliance and has made a commitment to strong enforcement of permit conditions and overall program provisions. EPA routinely inspects all facilities to assist in evaluating compliance by regulated facilities. The severity of a penalty will be based on the seriousness of the violation. Violators of the UIC program are subject to either civil or criminal penalties. Parallel state enforcement authorities under the Commonwealth's oil and gas regulations may afford additional protection. Now that I've supplied you with a brief overview of the UIC program and purposes of this public hearing, I'd like to briefly explain the protocol and procedures which govern this hearing. Persons wishing to testify will be called according to the following order. Elected officials representing federal, state, or local governments, representatives of federal, state, or local agencies, and then private citizens and representatives of public and or environmental groups. We will adhere as closely as possible to the order which you express your interest in presenting testimony either by your advance notice to EPA or to the order you registered for this hearing. If you wish to present testimony today but have not signed the register, please do so now. Is there anybody that hasn't signed up that wants to give testimony? Okay. In presenting oral testimony, we ask that you clearly identify yourself and your organizational affiliation in any way. This includes spelling your name for the court reporter. For those who are submitting written testimony this evening, we ask that you supply us with a copy of the record for this hearing, and if possible, we would also appreciate a summary of your points. I stress the fact that this hearing is not a debate or dialogue. We will not be responding to your comments or questions because our purpose in being here is to formally solicit your input on the proposal before us. Any additional comments that you may care to make after this hearing may be made in writing no later than a week from today, July 31st, 2017. We've extended the comment period for a week. And you can send that to care of Roger Reinhardt at the US EPA, Region 3, 1650 Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103. Thank you. And when we call you up for to give oral testimony, I ask you come stand near the microphone here because she's going to have a recording as she's typing. Okay? So we do have a township supervisor, James Wolf, who would like to give testimony. If you could please step forward. Come on up, Mr. Wolf. Okay. If you can stand over here by this microphone.
Who do I speak to, you?
Well, yeah, to all of us. You can speak to all of us. You can speak to the audience, but we just want to make sure she can record you.
I'm Jim Wolf. I'm the township supervisor here.
Hold on one second. Let me get the register now. Okay.
I'm Jim Wolf. I'm a township supervisor here. I'm an elected official. I'm a retired construction superintendent and also a drilling superintendent for 5 years. I'll make myself plain. I'm in favor of drilling and gas production if it's done properly. And when you dump industrial waste down a borehole from other areas, that's not the proper way to do it. We don't know what's going down there. And when you do this for years, there's a great possibility it's going to show up somewhere. Not if, but when. You know, in West Virginia, they got the problem with it right now. I dug in the dirt all my life. And I seen the rock is cracked and split. People say it's not. I seen it. I've been on rock slides and everything. I feel that if you're going to do this, and I also feel that we don't have a choice in it, you're going to do it, you should put a surcharge onto Seneca for depositing this industrial waste on our place, because it's not produced here in Highland Township. It's produced elsewhere. I got to thinking about it. Make the cost high enough so that treating this thing is lucrative. I feel $5 a gallon for them to dump it down that borehole would be a good price. You know yourself, the coal industry pays a fee for every ton of coal they come out because their soil is subsiding. So I'm urging you, if you pass this, which I'm almost positive you're going to, put a surcharge on this, give our Highland Township Municipal Authority some money so we can build our water line that we've asked Seneca to build and they won't build, and do some other things that we need to do. It's a small community. You know, we live day to day. We can't fight Seneca. Seneca spends more money for lunch than our annual budget. So I'm urging you to, number one, seriously consider what you're doing with the downhole, with the injection well. Number two, put a fee on it high enough that we can all live with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Misty Edinger, Assistant Chief of the Highland Township Fire Company. Assistant Chief.
Yeah. Misty Edinger, M-I-S-T-Y-E-D-I-N-G-E-R. Our community is clearly opposed to these injection wells. We've been fighting off one successfully for a few years now, and we clearly do not want another one. We also have a local law in place that prohibits these types of injection wells. There is a provision in your EPA permit that also prevents that a permit from being used to violate another law, particularly, where it says in Part 1, Section A, issuance of this permit does not authorize any injury to persons or property, any invasion of other private rights, or any infringement of state or local law or regulations. When our fire department asked for possible training from Seneca on how to respond to possible spills from motor vehicle accidents involving these trucks that haul this poison into our community, we were told they follow all PennDOT rules in hauling. Will not even offer us an explanation, extra training. In short, the EPA does not have the authority to permit these activities like injection wells that violate our home rule charter or the very personal rights of our community. The people of Highland Township are legitimate decision makers here tonight. We live here, we pay taxes here, we raise our families here, not the EPA. We have spoken, and the proposed permit would authorize an activity that would violate our township laws. The EPA should therefore deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mary Roeder. Roeder.
Right here.
Oh, you said no. I'm sorry about that. Marcia Bolts. Buell. Sorry, I should have worn my glasses.
Mine?
Yeah, I think so.
Christine Cole.
Too strong.
No.
M-A-R-S-H-A, then B-U-H-L. I'm the president of CASH. We're fighting the injection well. I'd like it to be noted that we've had 4 different petitions in the last few years. Every year I've redone it. And way over the majority of people have been against the injection well. We have presented it. We had local supervisors the first that go along with us. Then we got new supervisors, and they think it's illegal. And it needs to be said that there is currently a valid law within Highland Township that does prohibit the setting of this proposed injection well. It also prohibits the setting of the first injection well that Seneca applied for. Last year, in November 2016, residents in Highland Township approved a new charter for our community. The charter is like a local constitution and there to protect our rights. And we did that when we got the new supervisors. We knew they weren't going to support us. The community pulled together and they did their homework. These people worked hard on the charter and it was voted twice. The charter came at the end of the process that took an entire year and which includes 2 victorious votes of the people of Highland. The first vote, in May 2016, elected a government study commission to study our previous form of government as a second-class township. Those study commissioners were duly elected and served without pay. They worked tirelessly in public throughout the summer to examine our previous form of government, which they found to be lacking in many ways. Then they wrote the charter to fix problems, which we videotaped all these so the people in all Highland and wherever could watch it so they were aware of what was going on and they agreed with it. That charter was then voted in by the majority of the residents late November 2000, last year. It created the government and set the laws that serve our community and protects our rights. It was created by the residents and voted in by the residents. It is of, by, and for the people. And the charter prohibits injection wells, as well as any new permit for injection wells. While our supervisors are attempting to reach a settlement with Seneca to try to render provisions of the charter unenforceable, a recent decision by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals made clear that our supervisors do not have the authority to enter into an agreement with Seneca, that would deny rights to the rest of the residents. Thus, given that we have a Democratic enacted charter that prohibits the injection well, and given the charter is valid and enforceable, the EP should deny this permit, and I hope you do. The people are totally against it. People have wells and springs on Highland. They will have no means to be able to fight Seneca Resource if the water is ruined. They won't be able to prove it because they won't have the money. We're going to have to fight them if our water is ruined. And once it's ruined, it's ruined. You can't get it back. And in the past, there have been many mistakes. And I just hope you rethink all of your thinking and please do not do the permit.
Thank you. Cliff Stump.
My name's Cliff Stump. I'm from Ridgway Township. I live in Mount Morenci. My wife and I have 4 acres of ground. And we're doing the best we can to make it better. And when I was younger, I used to think of the government as kind of like a parent that took care of me. And now that I'm older and I see what's going on, they're like a bunch of addicts. Corporations like Seneca are the dealers. And it's terrible. You're not taking care of us. We're getting put by the wayside. These people have been fighting for 4 years. They got a heart, a big heart. And they shouldn't be put upon like this. Or anybody else shouldn't be put upon like this. It's just bad. We didn't inherit this earth from our ancestors. We borrowed it from our kids. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. John Weritz.
My name is John Weirtz. I'm a private landowner.
Can you spell your name? Spell your name, John.
Johnweritz. My address is 288 Lamont Road, Kane, Pennsylvania, and it's in Elk County. Before I start, I have a question for you, Roger. You sent me an email and you said you were going to find out if they were going to run both of the wells or if they were going to use one for a spare. And so and you said you'd let me know at this meeting.
Sir, after the meeting, you can come up and we can ask questions during the public testimony portion. We're not allowed to answer questions.
Okay, fine. But no, I'm going to try to stay calm here, but I'm very upset. Okay, you say you can't answer any of these questions. But I'm going to say them anyhow. And if you want to put them, I'm going to present this to you when I'm done. If you don't want, you're going to hear it whether you want to or not. And then I'm sure you can't answer them anyhow. Number one, will wells feed in different directions, in different areas, or will they all be feeding in the same area? According to the map given to me by Seneca, the two control wells for their first well are in opposite directions from my well. They could indicate everything's hunky-dory, but how can you guarantee me that my water will be okay? How can you guarantee me that my water is not being contaminated by your wastewater? I have no means of checking it every day for contamination. You could be putting crap up my well and I wouldn't know, but I could be dead and gone. You cannot sit there and say with 100% that you can guarantee that none of the water, there won't be some freaky thing on it that will contaminate any wells. How noisy will they be? Well, you won't answer that. Well, fine, you don't have to. I got a thing in the Seneca. I'm going to get the answers. Will wells be running at the same time? If so, how often? Now, since you didn't answer, you won't answer. I'm going to tell you what I heard from Ellison Joyce from Seneca told me. That 1, 2, or none would be running at a time. Okay, so you approve these two wells. What's going to stop them from running both of them 24 hours a day or whatever? You say, oh, it's okay. What's going to control how much they can run? And how many tankers will be running? Well, you can't answer that. It's too technical or it's out of your jurisdiction. Okay, the geologists and other so-called experts can say they have models. You show me that. You got drawings and that. But you cannot sit there and say, no matter what drawings you have, you do not know what's going on under that well. You cannot say with 100% that it will not contaminate my well or the people of James City. How would all of you decision makers like it if two waste injection water wells are going to go in so close to your wells? And you would. Now here I'd like to thank you people of James City because first well I sat back and didn't say nothing. For 5 years they've been fighting this. And by them fighting it kept me from worrying about my well. I thank them for that. Because of the well, James has gone through hell. And you can't do nothing about it, but I'm hearing horror stories of what's going on, litigations and that, people might lose their house. That's bullcrap. It's not acceptable. And there's nothing you can do to sit there and tell me that this is acceptable. Having people lose their houses and that, no, okay, and this isn't a threat, but this is and you can write this in here. If you decision makers, not just you, but all these decision makers, if something happens to my well or the people of James City's water, well, just remember this. I found out many years ago, what goes around comes around. And all I'm saying is, somebody does something that comes out bad for me, I don't worry about it, because sooner or later, the payback is something bad will happen to them without me doing anything. It's called karma. That's pretty much all I got to say, except thank you folks for James City for doing what you're doing. You can do whatever you want with that.
Linda Swanson.
Pretty easy. Anyway, I'm probably the last one that should speak against an injection well. My whole family is in the oil business. My parents, my dad, my granddad, my uncle, and cousins were all Pennsylvania Gas before they came National Fuel, then my brother and my brother-in-law. Had a lot of family. So you can imagine some of the talk around our supper table. Anyway, there's a thing I'm sure you're aware of called flooding the field, where they inject water down into wells to bring up the oil. Pennzoil did this down on JoJo, and that tank, where the well where they did that from, was farther away from our spring than what that one is. Now, you tell me what the difference is from what the injection well is. It's the same thing. That water, when it goes down, does a 360. So, and it always finds a water source. They say, well, don't fight it because Seneca will sue you, you lose your home. Well, what's my home worth if the water's no good? Don't we owe it to our children, our grandchildren, and future generations for clean water? Ain't we entitled to it? Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Rossetti, your question mark, if you...
Tom Orzetti, O-R-Z-E-T-T-I. And I just wanted to say, I wanted to be sure that someone brought up the comments here, and they have, that your application, or Seneca's application for a permit, if it's granted, is illegal on our local law. Over 50% of the residents passed the local law saying that they don't want it, and it would be illegal to grant a permit. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Mike Kamadoulis.
My name is Mike Kamendoulis. I'm the president of Elk County Cares, which stands for Citizens Advocating Responsible Environmental Stewardship. We've been involved with fracking and injection wells now for several years, and I've been the president of this organization. And as many of you know, it's been a long, difficult battle, but I've come to the understanding that this is just one part of a much, much bigger picture. I think all of us in this room, at least I hope all of us in this room, understand that climate change is real. It's dire. It's going to be happening within 30 years, they're saying. The scientists are saying 30, 40 years. Our children, and we have 8 grandchildren, are going to be living in a world that's vastly different from what it is today. 30 years. I remember when I started teaching, it was just a little bit more than 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but it's a blink, 30 years, climate change. And this is but one manifestation of the bigger problem. Natural gas. Oh, clean, affordable natural gas. We all know, at least many of us know, that a lot of this gas is going to be shipped overseas for profit. Oh, it's cleaner than coal. Yeah, okay. Methane absorbs, is a strong by 86 times absorbing infrared radiation. It's a heat trapping gas in carbon dioxide over a 20-year span. So even though they're saying clean, affordable natural gas, whoop-de-doo. It's not going to be clean, believe me. The more infrastructure they get put in for natural gas, the more leakage, the more methane gets in the atmosphere, boom. It's just going to exacerbate the problem. And as far as the injection well is concerned, I just remember one thing, the golden rule. Would anybody on the people that have to make the decisions, would they want this near them? Common sense, no. So why are they choosing Highland Township? Oh, there's a history of oil and gas extraction. You know, and I've been told that they're going to inject it underground, and as we've heard here tonight from a few people, it's going to go underground. And if there's any leakage whatsoever, their pressure valves will say, oh, it's leaking, shut it off, shut it off. Well, if it's starting to leak, that means it's starting to leak, which means the geologic formation is unstable. So the whole idea, that we all know in this room, is bizarre. But thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Bill Belitskis, you didn't respond whether or not you want to give a roll. Would you like to give a roll of testimony?
Yeah, I
Yes.
checked off, but I believe yes.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't miss that detail.
What's that?
This is the first time in history that 2 Lithuanians have spoken, one right after the other.
I'm going to sit down. I have sore knees. Is this close enough to the mic? Can everybody hear
Yes.
me? My name is Bill Belitskis. It's B-E-L-I-T-S-K-U-S. and I live at 117 Westwood Lane in McKean County, and I'm in the western development area of Seneca. I have a water well that I'm concerned about too. So my first concern is, and I'm going to be up after testimony to find out whether you advertised in the paper of record a legal notice in Elk County, because the Kane Republicans in McKean County and Highland Townships in Elk County, if you didn't advertise a legal notice in Elk County, you're going to need to do this over. That's the first comment. You're going to have to hold another public hearing, advertise it in the paper. So the first thing that concerns me is your announcement on your website, which basically says the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Region 3 EPA, plans to issue an underground injection control UIC Class 2D permit to Seneca Resources Corporation. So you already plan to do that. So this is really like a farce. This is what you do when you come into communities. That's your own notice, okay? So if you plan to issue the permit, why hold the public hearing? So the following comments are submitted by the Allegheny Defense Project, and I'm the board president for the Allegheny Defense Project. We're a local grassroots environmental group. Regarding Seneca Resources Corporation's application for an underground injection control UIC permit to dispose of shale gas wastewater in Highland Township, Elk County, Pennsylvania. Notice it said Elk County. So if you didn't advertise in Elk County, people in Elk County don't know you're holding a meeting tonight. That might explain why, attendance is somewhat low. First off, it's poison you're injecting into the ground that's going to impact everybody's water. It's contaminated with heavy metals, radioactive isotopes, and whatever other chemicals are used in the fracking process. It's not usable again. In other words, it's not coming back into our watershed. It can't be used again for agriculture, for drinking, for any use by any living thing. So that's what you're putting into the ground and impacting everybody's water wells with. If approved, Seneca would be permitted to inject shale gas production wastewater, that's a fancy term for poison frack water, at a rate of 45,000 barrels per month, which is 1.89 million gallons per month. I like to get that barrel translation. You guys love to use barrels because it's a low figure, but when you translate, how many gallons are in a barrel, you come up with 1.89 million gallons per month. Before the Environmental Protection Agency may approve Seneca's application, must prepare an environmental impact statement that considers in detail the direct and indirect effects of the proposal, as well as the cumulative effects of past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future actions. See 40 CFR sections 1508-7 and 1508-8. When reviewing whether to prepare an EIS, an agency must consider whether the action threatens a violation of federal, state, or local law or requirements imposed for the protection of the environment. 40 CFR section 1508- or .27 B10. In this case, EPA must consider whether approving Seneca's application threatens a violation of Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, the Environmental Rights Amendment. The Environmental Rights Amendment states that the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come, and as trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people. So, first off, you can't override Pennsylvania's Constitution trying to issue this permit like you did on the other permit. Because our state says our water is to be protected for future generations, and this is not protecting our water for future generations. And we won't even talk about the water that Seneca's been taking from the Chesapeake Bay watershed and taking it over into the Susquehanna watershed. So you're depleting water in our watershed and we're on top of the Allegheny Plateau, and all water flows away from us. So there isn't any more water. And when we have a drought like last year, when it was really hot and dry and everybody's local water wells were going dry, we're having problems with them, that water you're pumping into the ground is going to be flowing out. And one of the reasons we didn't put a nuclear waste dump in Pennsylvania in the 90s was because of the geologic history of Pennsylvania, plus the thousands and hundreds of thousands of wells that were drilled. We're Swiss cheese. So for you guys to sit here and say, we're going to put this in here and it's going to be safe, it's really ludicrous. The PA Constitution, Article 1, Section 27, the Environmental Rights Amendment, contains an express statement of rights of the people with respect to the conservation and maintenance of our public natural resources. In the Pennsylvania Environmental Defense Fund versus Commonwealth, on June 20th, 2017, the court found the concept of public natural resources includes not only state-owned lands, waterways, and mineral reserves, but also resources that implicate the public interest, such as ambient air, surface and groundwater, wild flora and fauna, including fish. And in Robinson Township versus PA Public Utility Commission, the proliferation of shale gas infrastructure, including shale gas wastewater injection wells across Pennsylvania, is causing substantial damage to our natural resources. EPA has an obligation to consider these impacts in a detailed EIS, which is not what you've considered. Seneca's proposed injection well is not occurring in a vacuum. Seneca is a production subsidiary of National Fuel Gas Company, National Fuel, we'll call them from now on, and they're engaged in a massive infrastructure build-out in northern Pennsylvania to explore, develop, and transport shale gas to downstream markets. Somebody already mentioned the fact, I take umbrage against having this clean natural gas that's going to be sustainable for us shipped to Scotland to make plastic in Scotland. In order to fully appreciate the environmental impacts of National Fuel's build-out, EPA must not isolate its analysis to this one injection well. And here we are talking about injection well 2. And you guys are telling me Seneca didn't know they were going to put another injection well in while the community's working to protect their water from the first injection well? Don't tell me they didn't know that in advance. Seneca's proposed injection well is located in what National Fuel refers to as its Western Development Area in Pennsylvania. See National Fuel Investor Presentation Q2 Fiscal 2017 Update, page 12, May 4th, 2017 Investor Presentation. And I've given you the website where you can go on and look. The Western Development Area includes 715,000 acres in about a dozen counties in northwestern Pennsylvania where Seneca either owns or leases mineral rights. Seneca has a large drilling inventory of, quote, quality Marcellus dry gas in the Western Development Area that includes approximately 1,100 locations. Seneca has also drilled 2 Utica shale gas test wells that continue to exceed Marcellus performance. I'm quoting from their investor information. National Fuel makes clear that this is a regional focus of development that minimizes capital outlay and improves return. So here today is the minimizing of the capital outlay. Instead of having to truck it all the way to Ohio, they want to dump it in this community near their water wells and near their springs that supply their community. And when you do that, and it leaks, and it destroys those people's wells and water supply, you're accountable for it. EPA has an obligation to consider the cumulative effects of this regional focus of development. 40 CFR section 1508-0.7. This should include at a minimum Seneca's exploration and production activities in the Western Development Area, roads, well pads, wastewater impoundments, and injection wells. It should also include National Fuel's gathering system build-out, which is tailored to accommodate Seneca's Western Development Area development. Investor presentation at 34, so you can look it up. I'm giving you the info. Finally, it should include National Fuel's interstate midstreams projects, such as the Northern Access 2016 project and the Line D expansion project. So you have all this going on in our communities, and you're trying to act like this is an isolated injection well that's not going to have any impact on our communities, on our air, on our water, on our heritage, our natural heritage, on endangered species, on invasive species. The latest study out of Penn State is that all the shale gas wells have increased the invasive species problem in our forest in Pennsylvania. Not good for our forest that we depend on. So Seneca's proposed injection well is but one piece of a larger puzzle that National Fuel is constructing across the landscape of northwestern Pennsylvania. This construction is causing substantial damage to our environment by converting a mostly forested landscape into a frackscape of roads, well pads, pipelines, wastewater impoundments, and compressor stations. It is converting a rural forested area into an industrialized area, which is irreparably altering the quality of life for the citizens that live in this part of Pennsylvania. The EPA has an obligation to consider these impacts in an EIS before issuing any permit for Seneca's proposed injection well. And so this is not an isolated incident. Well number 1 wasn't, and you should have known about well number 2. When did they apply for well number 2? I'll be asking that, because you should have known that was happening. So you hold a public hearing on well number 1, and then there's well number 2 is in the wings waiting. You're not doing your job. So basically under NEPA, you're required to look at the impacts. That's the National Environmental Policy Act. And those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a clarification, please? The King Republican.
Please come up. And you have to state your name and
I'm Jim Wolf. I want to make a clarification about the Kane Republican. The Kane Republican is the official newspaper for Highland Township. If somebody asked our secretary for the newspaper, she gave you that name. That is it, whether it's in McKean County or not. That is our official newspaper. I just want to clarify that. I don't want to get her in trouble if she gave you the name. Thank you.
thank you.
Excuse me, why was he allowed to do that during a public hearing when nobody else is supposed to do that?
You can come up and say more if you'd like to. You're allowed to come up and give as many comments as you'd like.
Okay.
He's already been, he's on.
And he's explaining something about testimony that I just gave.
You're allowed to say, you can come up and if you want to come up and say something.
Okay, well, make sure my record stands that you did not do the newspaper of record in L County for public notice. And it's supposed to be the newspaper with the greatest circulation in the county.
Okay, sir.
Not the Kane Republican.
Would you like
No,
to? Okay.
you got that, I think. I hope.
So that was everybody that checked yes, unless, did I miss anybody, or does anybody else want to change their mind? Come on.
I'm John Weir, so I have to come back up there?
If you want to give some testimony, come back up so that.
Since I'm not allowed to ask, I just want to thank Seneca Resources for the representative they have here to answer all our questions, and put that in your record.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up? Okay.
Ms. Gettinger, I'd also like to comment about the King Republican. Matter of fact is just recently we were told that they no longer will cover our news out here because there is such a low subscription that they don't even send the reporters anymore.
Okay. Is that it? You got one more?
Marcia Buell again. I forgot what I was going to say. Well, one thing is, we had the meeting at DEP, I asked for one, and I took some people with me. We were told back then that we were told about the second well, then possibly 15 more and be out Highland Way, where they had the wells and springs and no backup. So why you guys don't know, I don't understand that at all. If I knew that, You guys should have known that. And they have known how many violations. You guys look at the violations, the records, they're known for violations. I think they're 10 out of 20. They're right in the middle. And you don't find them. You guys get paid for the permits. You get paid for the fines and all the violations. But the violations, the fines aren't that bad, so they don't care. So you guys kind of profit from the bad things that happen. And our environment's very important. And you can't get it back unless you destroy it. And people around here are middle to low income. They can't afford having big fancy lawyers. They can't afford to go move or buy water. You've got to consider that, you know, they picked us because we're a small community. They didn't think we'd fight back, and we will fight back. And I'm hoping we don't have to, that you guys will open your eyes and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency.
Excuse me, I have one more comment.
Come on up, sir.
Yeah, it's based on what you were saying actually before the meeting started, where you explained to us how the DEP is actually responsible for handling clean water issues in Pennsylvania. The latest study shows that for a decade, they didn't monitor, they didn't record water violations in this state. In fact, you know, they run under a memorandum of understanding with the EPA. And so for you to sit there and tell us explain to us how the DEP's keeping us safe in Pennsylvania based on, you know, you allow this to happen and then they're gonna keep us safe is ludicrous, because they underreported, didn't report, didn't make public records that showed all the violations that have been going on since 2006, when shale gas extraction started in Pennsylvania, down in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I take you know, umbrage with your idea that you know, when you explain how it's working in Pennsylvania, it's not working.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more comment myself. What he's talking about.
You,
public
Mr.
hearing
Stone?
Yeah, you have to state your name.
Your name,
State
sir.
your name again, sir,
Your name,
for the
sir.
record.
Stone?
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't changed.
Well,
Just wanted to make sure it's.
we have to for the court record and for the.
Public Herald uncovered this, what Bill was talking about, and there was 9,446 known water supplies that were ruined that they covered up. And that's the truth. And where was the DEP? Who's telling them what to do? You guys? Geez, I hope not.
Okay, on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency, I want to thank the Fire Hall and the Township for allowing us to hold the hearing. And I want to thank you all for your participation here and your well thought out comments on this permit proposal. Under the EPA's program for underground injection control in Pennsylvania, I assure you that all these comments will be given serious attention as we prepare a final decision in the permit request. I would also like to remind you that the comment period on this proposal has been extended and will remain open until July 31st, 2017. If anyone cares to submit written testimony to our attention at EPA. Again, thank you for your interest in this proposal. This concludes the formal part of the hearing. My staff and I will remain available to discuss issues raised. If you should desire, feel free to come up and talk to us one-on-one.